Hello and welcome to the final This Week in Racing of the off-season. That means the off-season beard the next time you see me will be no more, at least until next year. And we've got a great show for you in store. We've got crazy Rick Ware shenanigans. We've got NASCAR Gen 7 testing, including some crazy stuff coming out of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with stock cars turning right. That'll be fun to talk about, as well as James Hinchcliffe. So many people have asked what his plans are going to be for this year, and we got some answers. But very quickly, and I promise this won't become a regular thing, but I do want to plug my Patreon page, which I launched last night to overwhelming success. I can't even believe it. I am so thankful, humbled, all that stuff, because as of the time of recording, I have 94 patrons on that page. I started with 12. It's up to 95. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. So please, if you're interested watching this show and want to see where my channel is headed content-wise for next year, head over to patreon.com/DavidLand. I've got some great benefits over there, including the fact that if you contribute $10 per month, you get your name on this show. I think there's something like 50 people who have already bought that benefit, which is just blows my mind, and it says something about racing fans, because you guys have really been supportive of me, and I cannot wait to bring you some fantastic content to come in this year. So let's stop talking about this year and start talking about this week in racing. And yes, the puzzle around the mayor of Hinchtown at least had one more piece put into place yesterday, as he announced brand new sponsor Genesis, which will sponsor him in the month of May, which implies not only the Indianapolis 500, but also the IndyCar Grand Prix on the road course. Now, here is the key part of this, and it's going to be the thing that obviously we're going to get to talk about later on down the road, is the fact that James Hinchcliffe did not announce a team that he will be racing with this new sponsor for the 500, so it's still up in the air. Many have speculated that he is going to a third car at Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, and that would make an awful lot of sense considering James Hinchcliffe's relationship with Honda. Though there is also speculation that he could, believe it or not, end up at a McLaren car at the 500 and the GP. I would put that one in the unlikely category. I think with all the dirty laundry that has been aired from both sides on this one, I just do not see that happening at this time, which of course then asks the question, what is going to happen with a potential third McLaren car? But for now, let me know down in the comments where you think James Hinchcliffe and his new sponsor are going to end up this month of May. I talked about the wacky world of Rick Ware Racing, and I even teased last week that they were going to give us an awful lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks, though I didn't quite expect this. So remember last week when I talked about the falling out between James Davison, their driver at the Rolex 24, or at least at the Roar for the 24, and was planned to race the Rolex 24 with Rick Ware Racing in the P2 category. That is no longer happening. Davison and Rick Ware had a falling out, and it was confirmed, despite already being confirmed by Rick Ware in the Sports Car 365 article, confirmed even stronger now that the Rolex 24 entry list has come out, and Davison will not be behind the wheel of Ware's Multimatic chassis in that race. So that calls into immediate question, what happens with James Davison's Daytona 500 effort? Now, originally, it was intended that Davison would contest both the Rolex and the Daytona 500, though it was not announced that he would be racing the Daytona 500 with Rick Ware Racing. That apparently is no longer happening, and much like what is happening at the Rolex, Davison will be replaced by another driver, yet unannounced, at the Daytona 500. In completely unrelated news, Natalie Decker will drive for Nice Motorsports in a partial Truck Series season. The NASCAR Next Gen car is back on track and was yesterday for the first time on a 1.5-mile oval in public at the Homestead Miami Speedway, which previously, of course, held the championship decider for the Cup Series and was the most recent Cup Series event. Now, there was a couple of interesting things from this test. Most importantly, they were testing a high downforce package. Many people have reported that this is going to be a high downforce, high or low horsepower package, and many of the photos and videos seem to confirm that. The other interesting technical note from this was confirmed from an in-car video from the test driver Eric Jones, which showed a 5-speed sequential transmission. Now currently, the Cup Series uses a 4-on-the-floor H-pattern gearbox, which is a dog box, so to speak, which you don't have to use the clutch on the upshifts. But this is a true sequential, similar to a DTM or a touring car, where you just pull the lever back and go up a gear and push it forward to go down a gear. That may rub traditionalists the wrong way. Another thing that will rub traditionalists the wrong way, so it seems by the social media reaction, is the sound of this next-gen car. And I'm going to play it for you right here as it was released on the official NASCAR YouTube page. So, what do you think of that sound? Is the next generation of NASCAR at least pleasing to your ears? I'm interested to hear what you have to say in the comments. No pun intended. And finally, the big news of this week, and it's the first big Penske-related bombshell outside of the fact that he bought the track, of course, with his ownership of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. NASCAR's Xfinity Series will race their race during Brickyard Weekend, the first on the 4th of July, it should be said, on the road course, switching away from the oval race, which of course became a restrictor plate race, one of the first on a flat track, or at least a flat super speedway. They will have Pennzoil title sponsorship. Of course, that's a B2B deal with Roger Penske, and the race is actually being moved to the big NBC away from NBC Sports Network. And also, Matt DiBenedetto will be testing next week at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to try to determine which configuration of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and there are several configurations they can use on the road course, will be best for competition. And so, obviously, there's a lot to talk about here, and I would like to thank Adam Stern for giving me a shout out on his Twitter account when he officially, I guess, broke the news, though I did have it the night before. I had seen that there was an announcement on Twitter, then I looked at the guest list and realized very quickly what it was. Certainly, I think the credit truly goes to Robin Miller for breaking this story, and in fact, I had a whole video in April talking about this when Robin Miller broke the story, and I think I specifically said, when the winds of change are blowing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and even with NASCAR, Robin Miller, when he breaks a story like that, is almost always right. So I completely made that video operating on the assumption that this would happen eventually, and so when all the stars seemed to align, that was when I looked at it and I said, it's got to be Xfinity on the road course, and it turned out it was. So what does this mean? Where is the Brickyard Weekend going? Well, we certainly know that Roger Penske is making a commitment to the Brickyard 400. He wants to keep that event going. Now, one of the things that was interesting while he was on the press conference was he didn't exactly shut down the idea that the Cup race could end up on the road course and the Xfinity cars could end up on the oval as soon as 2021. There's a lot of things up in the air, and apparently nothing is sacred with Penske, at least when it comes to the Brickyard 400. I mean, it's no secret that the Brickyard 400 has definitely been in trouble the last few years, and the addition of the Xfinity race hasn't really helped matters all that much. In fact, it was a little bit sad, I have to say, seeing the crowd for the Xfinity race and seeing as that race was ending, the real crowd actually showing up to go see a stupid concert in the infield. what I think is nice about this current Penske ownership is kind of the opposite of that, because they're moving the concert stage out of the way so that the racing can take place on the road course. I like that commitment to motorsports and that faith in motorsports that it's going to work. So this weekend, a lot of people were kind of confused when this was first announced, because a lot of people were like, holy crap, how are they going to run a road course and an oval at the same time? And a lot of people forget this because it wasn't very well promoted, but Grand Am / IMSA, what of course that series ended up becoming, did a dual weekend on the Brickyard weekend on the road course. And in fact, in 2013, the Cup cars and the Xfinity cars ran on the oval, and then they converted the track to the road course and ran both a Continental Tire Series race and then the big Grand Am race in the same day. What's different about the way this is going to operate is that the Xfinity race will be the first thing on the table on Saturday, and then they are going to turn the track over in, apparently, Roger Penske claimed, 90 minutes, and then they're going to go back out and have the first Cup practice sessions on the oval. That will be fun, and I think it will be successful, at least for the first year. Now, it's going to depend on the quality of racing. It's going to depend on the track that they use, and if it rains, it will definitely be a success, I think, in my opinion. I think we've seen that the IMS road course, as evidenced last year by the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, really comes to life when there's rain coming down. I think another thing that will really add to the potential success of this event, and this is funny because almost nowhere else in the world would this actually work, but I think it would work in Indianapolis, and that's how many IndyCar drivers are going to do this race. I think you could definitely make a case that guys like Connor Daly are going to do it. James Davison probably almost certainly will do it, and that's definitely an oxymoron. But guys like James Hinchcliffe have said a lot of times, hey, I'd like to do an Xfinity race. I'd like to do an Xfinity race. Well, now there's an Xfinity race taking place in all these drivers' backyard. I would love to see Chip Ganassi dust off one of his old cars and enter Scott Dixon. Could you imagine how cool that would be? What about Sam Hornish? Why not Penske bring Sam Hornish out of retirement and run him in an Xfinity race? That would be cool. I think there's a lot of possibilities that could make this event, at least in the first year, quite successful. Now let me lay on you some complete speculation. I rolled this by on Twitter. It got some mixed reactions. I think there were some people who were really against it and some people who were really for it. But I think this suggestion, or at least this kind of thought process, kills a lot of birds with one stone. So here's what I kind of would see in my fantasy world happens in 2021 with the Brickyard weekend. And it also involves, of course, the month of May at Indianapolis. So what I think maybe Roger's thought process might end up being is that you could move the IndyCar Grand Prix race to July, run that race on the same day as the NASCAR Xfinity race, and then run the Brickyard on Sunday. You then have the first doubleheader IndyCar NASCAR weekend. Roger Penske, NBC, and presumably Pennzoil as a sponsor would promote the absolute hell out of that race. Then you also free up some time during the month of May. You theoretically could go back to 2 full weekends of qualifying, where you have the first weekend to decide the pole and the second weekend to decide the bump day thing. That would solve the problem that many of the team owners have had, that they don't have enough time to qualify in the current format, and it ends up where you get guys getting caught out before the gun. That's something that specifically Roger Penske has talked about as being the issue he has right now with bump day. So, you kill a lot of birds with a lot of stones there, and it's certainly not a perfect plan. I think there's a lot of things that would have to line up for that to happen. But I would say at this point, with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway under the Penske empire, is that nothing is impossible and nothing is out of the question. And many of the things that fans have speculated about, well, how cool would it be if this happened? Or how cool would it be if this happened? Or why don't we bring back this tradition? I think it's a lot more likely now to happen than it was, a couple of months ago before Penske owned the place. Again, it's going to be an awful lot of fun to see what Roger Penske has in store for the sport of auto racing. This transcends the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but certainly the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is at the heart of all this stuff. It's going to be fun, I think, to see where it all goes. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next week, in this week in racing. I've got some fantastic Rolex 24 coverage coming up. The beard's going away. The Patreon's taking off. Life's looking good. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.